Hold up, Damian Lillard requested a trade. Was reported right before the Olympics, but it hasn't happened yet. And I doubled down on that pretty hard. I still think it's coming, but there's actually a really interesting scenario where he stays. And I know I will look really stupid, but who cares? The Blazers will look great because the only way to keep Dame is to make a big trade to pair with him. One guy who's definitely getting traded, we know, is Ben Simmons. Oh, and Ben has a trade demand list too. One reporter who knows the situation said, quote, he doesn't want to go to a bad situation. He sees Toronto, he sees Portland, and then being frank, being the young socialite that he is, he's not looking to go to any of those situations. He's looking to go to the California teams. Oh my God. Young socialite. And can you believe he's actually stopped talking to the Sixers completely? That's like if you and a significant other break up, but you still live together. He's giving them the silent treatment. That's the worst.
You and your spouse, and you guys are not talking to each other, and you just stay on opposite ends, and then you pass each other in the hallway. Like strangers, you're like, oh, excuse me, sorry. Yeah, no, go ahead.
The other potential star trade is Bradley Beal. The Wizards had a great offseason, but no one really knows what Beal's gonna do. This video explains realistic trades for those stars, plus 2 under-the-radar teams to watch for. Yo, it's Casey. This is AM Hoops. Hit subscribe. Now, some of the teams that had crappy free agent signings actually aren't done. People think the Blazers and the Warriors, for example, had a really bad offseason. Yeah, well, the offseason's not over. Trade season is just beginning, and the first big trade could be Damian Lillard. And some people say, oh, Dame won't demand a trade, that's just media hype. Oh, really? Red flag number 1. Chris Haynes, who is the closest reporter in Dame's life, said, quote, simply put, Lillard has not received the help that he needs to win a title in this era. As he turns 31 this summer, considering all he's done for the franchise, a more aggressive, risky approach is needed to pair him with another bona fide star. It is fair to ask if he is fighting the good fight alone. And what did they do the offseason so far? Nothing. They have not done a risky whatever it was. Like basically Dame is telling him, if we don't make huge moves, I'm gone. In an interview, Dame literally said, man, this isn't going to work. We're not going to win the championship. But we've got a successful organization, not a franchise that's just losing every year. We have positive seasons, but we just don't end up with a championship. So I feel like at this point, I made the decision that if you do what you've always done, you'll be where you've always been. How many more red flags do you need? All they did was re-sign Norman Powell and got Tony Snell. What? Dame will absolutely ask out in a realistic blockbuster trade is getting D'Angelo Russell, Matisse Thybulle, 3 firsts and 2 seconds to the Blazers. The Sixers get Damian Lillard, and the Timberwolves get the young socialite, Ben Simmons and Derrick Jones Jr. The reason this works is Portland feels comfortable with this gigantic haul for Dame. That is what you get for superstars like this. An all-star at Dame's position in D'Lo, a young top 3 perimeter defender in Matisse Thybulle, and a whole lot of picks. But Philly doesn't have enough first rounders to get this trade done, so they have to loop in a third team, and that is the Timberwolves, who get Ben Simmons. By the way, before we go on about Ben in Minnesota, one quick note. Some people are going to say, oh, D'Angelo Russell is untradeable. That is so wrong. He is not good enough to be untradeable. And the fact that they have a new ownership group means all the old rules should get thrown out the window. Now with Ben in Minnesota, his fit with Towns isn't like a whole lot better than with Joel Embiid, but he's almost an awkward fit on every team. At least Towns is a stretch 5. They absolutely improve with Ben in the lineup over D'Lo. His defense is elite. A big 3 of Cat, Ben, and Anthony Edwards has a higher ceiling. Now, Mark Stein reported that Portland is reluctant to trade CJ McCollum. If that's true, just trade Dame today, like with that big crazy deal, right? Because CJ's the only piece that you could send out to get a all-star in return to pair next to Dame. So if you're not going to trade CJ, just trade Dame now. But if they did trade CJ, they could send him and Anthony Simmons plus a first rounder to Philly. The Kings get Robert Covington and Derrick Jones Jr. and a first, and Portland gets Ben Simmons and Marvin Bagley III. And those two young bigs would be enough for Dame to run it back. For Ben, they had to give up CJ McCollum as a point guard for Philly, although he's not an elite playmaker. They also get Simmons, who is a good young shooter, and a first round pick. Bagley is already in trade talks, and the Kings up their awful defense with Rocco and airplane mode plus a first. Now the problem with that trade is the young socialite does not want to go to Portland. He wants the Warriors. It's insane to even have a trade demand list with like 4 years left on your deal. Literally the most years we've had on a trade demand list was James Harden, who just had 2 years left to either Brooklyn or Philly. But let's just say that the socialite gets his wish. Then the Dubs could trade Andrew Wiggins, Jordan Poole, Moses Moody 30 days after he's drafted. I'll be honest, Philly wants more than this, yet all my Warrior friends will think this is too much. Wiggins had the best season of his career last year. He would be a contributor on the Sixers. Some Warrior fanboys think just Wiggins for Ben is fair, but it's not. Golden State needs to include Jordan Poole because his shooting is what Philly needs, and Moses Moody is a great prospect who's only gotten more love since he's been drafted. And if that's too much, Warrior fans, think about Ben Simmons on your team. Everything he does do well is a perfect fit for your roster. Plus, worst case scenario, let's say he doesn't learn to shoot. Well, being on a team with these Splash Brothers helps that a little bit. Now, our last star is Bradley Beal. I think the Wizards actually had a great offseason. Spencer Dinwiddie is not a drop-off from Russ. All of the depth that they got from LA means they are too deep at every position, but obviously they're not a title contender. Now, Beal has 1 year left on his deal. He's got to make a decision, and if he demands a trade, the Warriors would be a great move, but we've done like 10 videos on a Beal Warriors trade. So what about Brandon Ingram and 4 firsts for Bradley Beal? This is the kind of deal that the Pels can pull off because they've got a lot of draft picks and a young all-star in Ingram. The Pels wanted a veteran point guard next to Zion. Well, what about a younger, more athletic, better scoring version? The fit works, so does the trade. 2 other teams to watch for are the Raptors, who could deal Pascal Siakam as they rebuild, or the Orlando Magic, and I'm not hearing enough people talking about this. Think about the Magic, where they are right now. First, they have like a $17 million trade exception from the Evan Fournier deal out to the Celtics. They also have room below the luxury tax line, and they're rebuilding. The Magic could be the new Thunder. They could be taking on bad contracts that are paired with picks and just start stockpiling picks that way, the way that the Thunder have done. And they could rehab guys the way the Thunder have done and flip them later. So look for all of those stars plus the Magic and the Raptors. And look for these Beal to the Warriors trades.